Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I'm here with.
Hello, I'm John Houlihan, and I'm the creative lead on Modifius's Achtung Cthulhu RPG.
And today we're going to talk about Achtung Cthulhu D-Day, the Darkest Day, a thrilling 12-part campaign, including a full guide to Operation Overlord. I find it surprising how much we're starting to forget history. There's been some individuals that I've met in the past when I talk about World War II and I mention Operation Overlord, maybe due to the movie that came out a few years ago, a horror movie based on World War II, also called Overlord. But
Yeah.
they hear that term and they think it's a fictional thing. And I explain, no, it's actually a real thing that happened during D-Day in World War II. Let's talk about the origins of this. What led to this campaign adventure?
Well, there's a couple of things really. When we were planning out the 2D20 version of Achtung Cthulhu originally, we knew that there were kind of quite a lot of existing fans already who might have characters and stuff, and so we sort of thought we'll have what we'll do is and there'll be obviously quite a lot of new players as well. So we thought what we'll do is we'll have a sort of twin track approach. So we'll do some campaigns during the early war. So we've got things like Shadows of Atlantis and The Serpent and the Sands. And then we'll do some campaign books from sort of the end of the war right the way up to the sort of final book, which is already planned out. The last big book we did last year was Serpent and the Sands, which was set in North Africa in 1941, the Great Big Desert Campaign. D-Day was the sort of logical starting point for the latter end of the war, I suppose. And obviously, with the anniversary coming up, with just, not too long ago now, it just seemed, and such a big anniversary as well, the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. It seemed like the perfect, alignment of timing and opportunity, should we say. So that was our thinking about doing D-Day and doing D-Day now, just to sort of coincide with the actual real life operation. I mean, you mentioned, yeah, absolutely. It's, Stalingrad, I guess, is sort of seen as the pivot point by many people in the Second World War. That's when the sort of tide first started to turn against the Nazi regime. But D-Day is when, it's such a huge and important point. It's the point when the liberation of Europe has begun, or it begins, or mainland Europe begins anyway. And so it seemed like a perfect campaign to explore. As always, with Achtung Cthulhu, we're talking about the secret war, this sort of conflict that underpins and goes underneath, runs underneath the main events of World War II itself, where nefarious Nazi villains are using black magic and strange technology to try and win the war for their own twisted ends. So this new campaign book uses like a lot of our stuff in Achtung Cthulhu is grounded in real historical events, but it's kind of looking beneath the surface and asking, what if the Nazis had two secret occult organisations who were sort of working for them, but also on their own, having their own agendas, working way beneath the surface of real world events.
Now, I assume this is not going to be taking place at Omaha Beach, or maybe it is. I'm not sure. But while this is happening, where does the campaign begin?
Well, it's actually quite interesting. One of the things we got feedback from members of the community and certain new players as well was that big campaign books are fantastic, but they actually take a lot of time and investment, for a playing group. So you could be, like a big campaign like Serpent and the Sands, you could be playing that for 6 months or a year. So what we thought we would do is try and make a sort of slightly different approach with this one, with a campaign that you could sort of dip in and out of a little bit more. So instead of one great big long continuous campaign, you'd have the option to sort of play one or two episodes from it. We've actually split it up. There's 12 sort of main missions, and they're split into three categories. So there's 3 missions pre-D-Day, There's a whole arc which is just on D-Day, which is called Down with the Deep Ones, which is a real excursion into the undersea realm of Cthulhu's Children. And then there's sort of 6 missions to end the third part of the book, which are loosely linked, but they're not necessary to play every single one. And they sort of explore the strange technology and wonder weapons that Nactwolf, one of the 2 cult factions, might have deployed to prevent the Allies landing. And also there's a great big finale at the end with Black Sun doing their usual nefarious thing and attempting to unleash a hellish horde which would throw the Allies back onto the invasion beaches. So we tried to design it, when it came to sort of designing it, we tried to have it a little bit more episodic. The first 3 missions, you could play one of them, all 3 of them. The second 4 are kind of narratively linked in a sequence of events. So you probably play that as a sort of mini campaign, and then the final part of the book, you could certainly play all of them in order. Although it'd be quite a dangerous and deadly assignment that would. But also you could dip in and out of them just depending on your group's taste, and actually, of course, the time you can allocate to stuff now, because we're all time poor, aren't we? Nowadays, it's difficult to fit everything in, and gaming's no exception. Tabletop gaming's no exception. So we tried to give, which as always, we tried to be open in terms of design and give players and JMs options, and they can use as much or as little of all the stuff as they'd like.
Mm. So is this book similar to like when it comes to like Serpent and Sands, where like Serpent and Sands is such an in-depth book? We have, I think I mentioned that you look at the first part of it and like, oh, there's a lot of stuff happening here, and then there's this huge campaign at the end. Is it more like Shadow of Atlantis, maybe, where it's just a campaign? How is the book structured?
Yeah, so we thought we really liked and it was received really well, Serpent and the Sand. So, we, as well as giving, here's your campaign or adventure, we always like to include lots of tools to the GMs and indeed for players to explore. It's probably not quite as in depth. There's a guide component too, so that features you've got tools of the trade, you've got vehicles, you've got creatures. And that kind of, that sort of enables GMs and players to use some of the iconic equipment, encounter some of the vehicles, like the crazy Hobart's funnies, as they were called, the sort of strange designs that the Allies used, but surprisingly effective designs that the Allies used to actually storm the beaches. And also there's some creatures as well, which kind of tie in a little bit more with that Down with the Deep Ones arc I was talking about. We've long wanted to sort of have a little bit of a peer into the strange biotechnology that the Deep Ones might use. We thought, they won't use like conventional weapons and stuff, but they would use some of the creatures that could be found in the depths with a bit of sorcery and a bit of magic, and adapt them to become living tanks or mortars, or kind of there's even an appearance from a fearsome Deep One Leviathan, which is something that was hinted way back in the original Game Master's Guide, but we've actually managed to squeeze a couple of them in here, and they're fully statted up. So if you ever wanted to take on a Leviathan, not that I'd recommend that, but if you ever wanted to take one on, you can find one in D-Day here. So yeah, we wanted to give a sort of guide component as well as a campaign component to it. And as I say, it's probably not quite as in depth as the Serpent and the Sands, but I think it will give everyone a look at some of the iconic vehicles and weapons that you'd encounter during any sort of D-Day mission, or you might encounter during a D-Day mission. So for example, there's like the Horsa airspeed glider was one of the like really iconic bits of vehicles that was used in World War II, especially in Operation Pegasus. Well, we've got one of those in, and we've got rules for sort of glider-borne landing. So if you do want to hurl your agents into occupied France using one of those, you can happily do it with the stats contained in the book.
If I may ask about the setting. Now, I know some of the previous adventures tend to travel either all around the world or very specific certain locations. Is this book going to focus just mostly on Normandy or some of the countries surrounding it?
Yeah, it's mainly, I mean, it would be, it'd be, it'd be surprising if you were going around the world. I think it is mainly based around that invasion area. So, but that encompasses, there's a couple of adventures set on the home front. So there's some, in the build up to D-Day, pretty much the whole of the south and east of England was one big army base, basically. So there's at least a couple of adventures set there. There's one of the missions takes you over to rural France for a little bit of misdirection, operation echoing some of the ploys the Allies used to convince the Nazis that the invasion was going to take place at the Pas de Calais rather than on the Normandy beaches. And we've got an excursion to the Channel Islands. So within that kind of confines, I suppose, of the D-Day area, we've got quite a varied number of settings. And of course, the second arc, Down with the Deep Ones, takes you below the waves to encounter the Deep One city of Tepditha and a few natural installations along the ocean floor. So it is quite a more concentrated area this time, but we've got quite a diverse and interesting set of locations for you to explore as part of the book.
So I noticed that there's a full guide to Operation Overlord. Although Achtung Cthulhu books have always been very careful with history and capturing preferably at the time and the culture of the events happening around where the game is set. But this, I think, might be the first time I've seen like a full guide to something very historical.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to give something about something that captured the spirit of the time. I suppose it was it was such an interesting and iconic time. And we don't delve too much into the actual history because I think that's extremely well known through movies, TVs, books, and stuff. Because I suppose you'd say that this is probably not a campaign aimed at new players. It's going to be aimed at kind of the existing fans and hopefully interest a few new fans as well. But they might need to build their characters up before they can tackle this. But I think we mainly kind of do that in that guide component by giving players the tools and the equipment and the vehicles to kind of step off and perhaps do their own Operation Overlord adventures, because I think whatever we create, our fans and GMs, they create many wonderful adventures and sometimes publish them too on our drive-through program based around what we've done. And I think that's always a nice aim, is to be able to kind of empower people to go off and use these tools and equipment. I mean, there's some crazy Secret War technology and ammo in there and weaponry in there as well. So hopefully players and GMs will have some fun experimenting with that in their own adventures.
And I think we talked before how the artwork and the art design for Achtung Cthulhu is always really amazing. It's a lot of great stuff in there. Is there anything different this time around? Any different in the direction for this book?
Not really. I mean, I think you've probably got the cover up there, which we kind of designed to be a little bit of an iconic tribute to one of my favourite D-Day films, which is an old one, which is the Longest Day, which is a black and white movie made with virtually every British and American and German star, Hollywood star. I think it was in the 60s it was originally made. It may even be a little bit earlier, but it's a amazingly good film, and very grounded in the actual reality of the thing. So it was sort of inspired by events at St Mary Glees, when there's a very iconic bit in that when one of the paratroopers is caught up on the town hall clock, and he's sort of stranded up there and watching his comrades being parachuting in and being attacked by the Germans. In terms of overall art direction, once again, big hat tip to our art director Ariel Oria, who marshalled some fantastic artists to take part and bring the kind of bring the different missions and adventures to life. And also Glyn Seal, who's our cartographer, who has produced some amazing maps and work to really help bring these missions to life. But yeah, we kind of I mean, there's a lot of things you associate with D-Day, whether it's the the iconic invasion stripes on the planes, or things like the Bangalore torpedo, which was used to break up static defences, or even again things like the Crocodile Churchill tank, or some of the Sherman crab tanks that were used to clear minefields and stuff. So we tried to, the art tries to reflect that, and of course the battlegrounds as well, all that bocage country in Normandy and on the coast and things like that. So they were all, I suppose if Serpent and the Sands was influenced by the sort of desert palette, then this art direction is influenced by the bocage and the sort of rich green French countryside, but also I suppose the undersea bit as well. Interestingly enough, the middle campaign has got a very different kind of oceanic feel to it. But yeah, I'm always amazed at the how the artists bring some of our crazy creations to life. I still get a phenomenal amount of joy by just sort of seeing, wow, what they've done, turned our words into really atmospheric pictures, and yeah, it's still a constant wonder to me.
I heard that proceeds from sales of this book are going to go to a charity. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, we decided very early on that especially with it coinciding with such a significant anniversary, we're going to donate proceeds from every sale to veterans and World War II, especially Normandy charities. And also, there's a gaming one called Models for Heroes, which sort of ties in with our gaming thing, with our gaming remit as well. So, yeah, we're going to donate portions of that. We've got a Just Giving page at the moment. If people want to go and have a look at that, it's all on Modifius's social media. You can get the full details there just to support that giveaway. But a percentage of every book sold and every PDF sold will be going to those guys, and thoroughly deserving they are too. I mean, I've been obviously with such a big anniversary coming up. There's been a lot of programs already started, and I've been listening to some of the amazing accounts of it still stuns me. Amazing accounts of people who were involved in D-Day. Sadly, not many of them are left now, but we wanted to do something to keep that spirit alive, and also perhaps even educate people who didn't know the full story of D-Day,
Hmm.
and perhaps just enable them to explore that a bit further.
I'm really excited about this. It gives me a chance to not only um, you know fight more against the old gods, but also it's a great chance for my players and I to revisit history. I have to say the one of my favorite things about playing Achtung Cthulhu is that right now we're still playing Shadows of Atlantis,
All right.
and whenever we go to a new area where we're preparing to go, it gives us all a chance to get reacquainted. And it's amazing how much we've forgotten about certain things. Like Cairo, for example, all the major landmarks, uh, things that was going on during that time period, when the British had a major influence in that area at the time. all sorts of very amazing things that we just, sort of forgotten as we get busy in our lives. So I really enjoying these books, and I'm glad that this is coming up. Every time I mention this to my players, they're like, they just lift their hands like
Oh,
this.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah,
Mm,
it's a privilege and a pleasure to be able to kind of explore these things. And, I suppose that's one thing that perhaps does distinguish Acton a little bit from other RPGs which are more fantasy or sci-fi based. We do have that historical background to work with, which can be a blessing and can be a curse in some ways, as they say. But I've always thought it's wonderful to be able to kind of re-explore and revisit these intriguing events. I've always been a real World War II anorak, as they call it over here,
mm,
someone who's really fascinated by the history, and it was such a pivotal time in human affairs that it constantly rewards, reinvestigation and I just find it fascinating. I just find it one of the most fascinating periods in world history.
mm. Oh, my player asked me this about this this source book. Um, D-Day obviously takes place not just one day per se; it's actually a couple of days stretched out. It's an ongoing campaign in real life, of course, at the
Yeah.
time. But in terms of the game, is this game looking at like a 24-hour period time wise, or is it like time in the adventure, more like 2 weeks, 2 months?
Well, we've tried to leave it a little bit vague in terms of there's only one adventure that is definitely kind of and it's the ultimate one actually. There's only one that is tied directly to the night of the 5th, 6th of June, which is the finale, as it were, that are called Unleash the Hellish Hordes. So we've kind of tried to keep it a little bit vague so that you know the last last 5 or 6 missions, they lead up to D-Day, but there's no like it happened on this particular day. So because we know some players, some groups won't experience them all, some groups will want to play them all through. So we've kept it a little bit vague on the timeline just to give GMs a little bit of flexibility. So it's not particularly tied to um, any one date. The final mission, I guess, takes place over 2 to 3 days, so it will be 6th to 9th of June. Um, but the other ones are there or thereabouts, so you can kind of
Mm.
just slot in where you need them.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. So when is this coming out again?
Well, it's been on pre-order for a little while now, but we're actually starting shipping on June the 6th itself, D-Day itself. It's
Excellent.
quite a nice
Um,
code, sort of designed it that way. So, yeah, June the 6th, that will be released on both Modiphius stores, Drive Through RPG, and, books will ship out anyone who's pre-ordered will ship out, probably just start shipping out just before that. So
mm,
hopefully we'll get it into players' hands as soon as possible, and look forward to hearing what people think, as always.
mm. Is there anything about this book, everything I haven't asked that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
No, I think we've covered most of the things. As always, I just like to say pay a big tribute to all the people who've contributed to it. I did the narrative design on this, so I didn't do much of the writing myself. So there's a great writing team I've assembled to work on Achtung Cthulhu. All the artists, all the art directors, the project managers, all those guys who perhaps don't get this. There's too many to name them all, sadly, but they don't get enough credit. And all the people behind the scenes at Modiphius who, actually make the book and get it shipped out to shops and stuff like that. I just pay a little bit of tribute to all those guys the unseen army that powers Achtung Cthulhu onto your shelves.
Well, John, thank you so much for sharing some details about D-Day, the Darkest Day. Again, a 12-part campaign adventure. Um, I'm very excited. I can't wait for this to come out of my bookstore. Um, so,
Excellent.
viewers, thank you for watching. Be safe out there. We'll see you next time.
Bye now.